Good morning, good morning, good morning. So happy to have you with us. I am Shelley Butler.
I'm Yves Doucet.
And this is Mindset Monday. And we are so excited to have Laurie Flasko here with us this morning. Laurie is a co-author of Bullying is Not a Game, A Parent's Guide to Survival. A parent survival guide, sorry. Laurie wows her customers, build strong teams and leaders, all about building strong teams and leaders. She inspires a culture of kindness, right up Dovico's alley, a culture of kindness. I absolutely love that. She is a virtual and on-site trainer, speaker, and coach. You are just a partner of ours, honestly. As I read through your website and through LinkedIn and messaging, you are one of us.
Soul partners.
Yes.
Soul partners, yeah.
Yes, I absolutely love it. Laurie, yes. I have to ask you though, what does leadership mean to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Loaded question.
Isn't it?
So, when we think of leaders, we think of you, the two of you, top of the company, CEO, the owners, but every single individual in that company is a leader. It's someone that has an opportunity to influence, to bring other people along, but again, we often think about it in being that management or leadership position, because I think there's those types of positions also, but I think it's anyone can be a leader.
Yeah. And what's the difference between, in your, like another loaded question, between a boss and a leader?
Well, that boss is come in and do this and do this, and a leader is engaging people. They're getting people to, and your work, what you talk about is innovation. It's inspiring people to do great work, to be innovative, versus that boss that says, how many tick boxes did you check today? What did you do? Or tell me every little piece of what you did and you didn't do that. Whereas a leader, I think, takes a coach approach. There's very strong characteristics that a leader has that maybe a coach doesn't. So it's again, creating that environment where your people succeed.
Love that.
Pardon?
It's like Yves thinking deeply, I could tell.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of questions and I'm trying to figure out which one I'm going to ask. But I guess, the most difficult task I find as a leader or a coach, right, is when you have a team that doesn't get along. Yeah. So you, how does kindness show up? Mm-hmm. How does kindness, it's hard when you have a team that doesn't get along and you're trying to bring kindness in there. You're trying to, manage, insert yourself between the fight or whatever you want to call it. So how do you show up? How does kindness show up in a team that doesn't get along? How does a leader or a coach show up like that?
Well, I think Yves, first of all, the leader has to show up with that as a value, and walk the talk, because it's, if the leader isn't, the teams pick up on that. So it's what you encourage as a leader. What are you doing as a leader? And then it's holding people, so setting the standards and then holding people accountable as well. But it's also feeding it. If you think about a plant and it doesn't get the nutrients, it just kind of goes like this. Well, it's the same with that leader and feeding their team, whether it's kindness or whatever it is. You give that, and then that plant starts to stand up nice and strong. But if a leader sees things like incivility, which I talk a lot about, some of those.
Great word.
It's a great word, right? And it's a continuum. So it could be something like you've got a team members that are, you can hear them picking at each other, or there's some sarcasm, or there's some of those subtle signs, and certainly on the other end. But it's the leader that goes in and has a conversation or stops that right at the beginning, because I'll tell you, those kind of behaviors and actions, they're like a weed. They can just spread right through that team. So you've got to kind of nip it immediately and continuously stopping that. Because let's face it, right now, when things, I don't know how you show up when you're stressed, but when we're stressed, we don't always act in the best ways. And we can be, at least that's, you know, I am. And when we show up like that in the workplace and we snip at someone, or, you know, we get upset with someone, if we don't have sort of that stop or that foundation, I mean, that's going to happen. But if we built in enough kindness and enough other areas of respect, then those will be far and few, versus it kind of takes over. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I was told by
Momentum.
one of my friends recently that, and this a couple of questions. So I'm gonna just go own up. How do I show up when I'm stressed? I'm gonna just own up to everybody. Nasty. I show up not as a good friend. I show up not as a good leader. I show up nasty, like I do. And I'm working on it. And it's a practice.
And that's
I'm aware of it.
key. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just going to own up on that, and I know how to focus on that, because I think most of the times I don't. But everybody gets stressed. There's no perfect people, right? Like
Absolutely.
there's nobody's perfect.
We all show up like that. All right, my ego becomes larger than life, and I can barely fit into it.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, we were having a conversation with our team, and I was showing up nasty, and Shelley just emails me. She says, "Okay, what's up?" Like, while we're having a conversation, and like we have an environment, a team
all
environment.
about?
Pardon?
What is that all
What
about?
is that? That's what you said, something like
Well,
that.
and good for
I
the
wanted
two
you
of
to take
you.
pause.
Good for the two of you to have that relationship, right? Hey, what's going on? What just happened there? Because then you get a chance to say, oh yeah, I get that. And, you know, I'm still maybe in a bad mood, but it gives you a chance to think. And you also said it makes us become intentional. And I think that's a key thing. As a leader, you have to be intentional, right?
Yeah, and so I'm just gonna, like, what Shelley did there. She showed up as a leader. She called me out on being nasty. What is that about?
Yeah.
And immediately I said, "Oh yeah, that's right." Like, and I went back. I apologized to the team. I said, "I'm just being nasty here." And it was really one of the best meetings we've ever had as a team, because she called me out.
Yeah.
Not because it was nasty.
Well, in actuality, it changed our direction.
It
changed
did,
the
yeah.
way that we look at things, right? And we decided, we built a product actually called Show Up, all about it, you know? So you know, I honor you for being truthful and saying, man, when I'm in that space, I don't necessarily show up really well. But Laurie, you said the perfect thing. I think that all people, like in our position, need to have support, need to have that support. Now, it's not just him and I. We also employ a whack of people in our province, and they also have our back. We know that. We have their back. So it's not just him and I. We do have we're very, very close, and we do have a relationship that we're going to lead this team forward. But we believe, like you, every one of them are leaders. Every one of them are leaders in their own right. If we can only find what they love to do the most, we can help them find what they love to do the most.
I remember even Estelle, not even, but Estelle calling me out on, we promote like time off, meaning that when you're off, you're off. Like at 5, you're off, and unless there's an emergency, I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to email you, even though everybody has a phone. I can access. Everybody has access to everyone, but we respect our time off. And I was going on holidays, and I told her, so, well, I'm going to keep on doing the Mindset Mondays. And she called me out and she says, well, that's not what you're saying to us, right? So, like, I love that, call people out, right?
Yeah.
And I've been told, one of my friends told me something like this: you have to watch what you're saying in front of Yves, because he's going to call you out. And I thought about that for a minute, and I thought, well, it's true, because I do call you out. I think friends, like Shelley's my best friend, Estelle's one of my best friends, like, they call me out. And does that make any sense to you as a leader? You have to be willing to be called out. Absolutely. And you have to call out, right? It's not only me calling like you, I have to be willing to be called out, right? Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. And how cool is it to have a culture like that where, and I mean, I think, you know, it certainly takes a little bit where we start to call our peers out, but that's in the end, that's what we want. But are your team members calling you out too?
They are.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and then if they are, just as a leader, because it comes, you're there, you got to be the role model. How do you react to that? And how do you encourage that? And how do you spread that word through? Like, that's an opportunity. That's a gift for you right there to be able to share it as a story for everybody else to hear so that they can see the steps that took place. And I love what you said, Yves, is how you went and you apologized after, because people are watching at that point. So it's that, you know, an apology is hard, but if we can see you doing it, then more and more people are going to learn from you because they're learning from watching.
So would that be
Through
this?
that vulnerability, right? It's through that vulnerability that allows us as individuals to say, oh my gosh, the owner of the company, not only did he, you know, come at us nasty, but he was also able to realize and react in the same time frame of saying, oh my God, like, I'm sorry, you guys, like, it's just a bad morning, or, you know, I'm not my very best. So you say emotional intelligence, EI, is more important than IQ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you talk about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management.
Yes.
And really, that's what this is, isn't it?
It is. Absolutely.
But amongst everybody, not just the top or the front line, it's everybody.
Everybody. And realizing that, you know, you just identified that you show up stressed, or how you show up in that moment. Every one of your team members is going through the same thing. And what's happening right now is, unfortunately, I mean, your team members are working remotely. We don't get to see them in the same way.
Exactly.
And so, you know, and we're not even seeing we're not seeing emails or how they're relating to each other. So it's important anytime we have that opportunity to be able to share stories, to be able to share examples, so that those standards, they see them over and over and know what to expect. Those are our learning lessons.
Yeah.
So like, I'm capturing some like themes here that you're putting forward. Be willing to be called out, or calling out a team that's like, you're in a team that's not working well. And so the ability to call out or be called out, right? Because maybe you're creating this, like, this dynamic. You're reading, I am creating this dynamic, because I've seen that too, right? So be willing to be called out and call out. Like, that's the kind of the theme. Then be willing to say sorry or apologize. Yeah. Yeah. And then being open to, and then I'm not sure, like, what would be the next thing after that? So you're willing to be called out, you're willing to apologize. Okay, what would be another pillar for building a functional team?
Well, and then I think it's going and building. So, you know, if I know that something happened between you and I had to apologize, I'm not going to leave it there. I'm going to do what I can now to go back and restore that relationship, build that relationship. And I think sometimes we forget to do that, but that's a key piece, because just because we apologize doesn't mean it's over. I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes it lasts longer. So it might be continuing a conversation or following up, say, how are you doing? How's it going? But I think that that's a key part. You know, whether we're talking about customer experience or employee experience, I always go back to, when you're a customer and you complain, sure, you might try it again, but it takes several more awesome experiences for you to go back and say, wow, this is great. Yeah. So I think that piece has to be there too.
Very good.
Yeah, I love that. Love that analogy.
So it's like being a yes to, like, a new way or a discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say, once you've like let go of like whatever the stress that you had, right? Mm-hmm. It's being a yes to something, like a new way, a new path, a new discovery of something. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying?
And I want to back up that pillar, because I think it's a real cycle or circle. You know, when you think about Patrick Lencioni's work, he talks about how important it is to build trust. And in order to call somebody out, you have to have a relationship. If it's going to be a positive call out, you have that relationship and that safety and that trust to be able to do that in the first place. So I think it's that big cycle, right? So you start out with that relationship, with that building that trust, and then, you know, you end up with it too. So it's just constantly feeding.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Like going around calling out people that you don't know.
Yes, that's not good.
It's not going to result in a good thing. Yeah, yeah. That's, and I think a lot of that's happening, right? And as leaders, we have to understand: have we built enough trust to be able to call out someone, right, in public? Because, like, when you start calling out, right, like, you have to have a lot of trust to stand on there.
Absolutely. And also, where do you call out? You know, I'm not necessarily going to call you out in front of a group of people. That's not going to work. So it's even, you know, some of that, where do you call someone out? How do you do it? People don't know it. That's something that doesn't come natural. So they almost need to see it happen or to learn how it happens.
Yeah, in no way, shape, or form did I call Yves out when we were having that meeting and he wasn't showing up as his best self. In no way, shape, or form did I call him out there. Right. I did one of these. Right? I did one of those under, you know, under the cloak of darkness. And only just because I needed him to have a little bit of a jolt at that time, right? That's all that was. But it's so important, you know. I think that trust environment is so difficult to build because we all have our negative bias all about what corporate, you know, Canada means, if you will, right? It's always supposed to be about, if I didn't get my work done, then I'm going to get the lashings. If I, you know, and we don't run that type of organization, right? We simply run a flat organization, and you are responsible for the work that you need to deliver. And of course, if you don't deliver it, well, then perhaps even I have to get in there, but in no way, shape, or form are you ever going to actually get whipped for that either. We just want to know the why, right? First of all, we want to find out if it is inspiring you, the work that you're doing. You know, usually if you're not getting the work done, and that's a problem, well, then we know that that's probably not the area that you should be in. And we'll work on finding, you know, your area of expertise or your talent or where you want to be. So that's important to us. And we believe that that is truly a part of our good company culture, finding what people love to do. But what I'm recognizing now that people are home is they don't necessarily know what they like to do or love to do. Right? They just keep dogging what they're doing and not necessarily. Now, we don't have the delivery issues, do we, Yves? Everybody kind of delivers. We don't really have those issues. So years ago, 2013, Yves decided to put a culture in place of you are responsible, and we called it YAR. You are responsible. And everybody got that. It took a while, but everybody got that. I mean, at first it was one of those like, oh, you weren't going to remind me to get that done. You weren't going to, you know what I mean, push me to get that done. No, we really wanted to see where your passions lie. If you're not getting it done, well, that is our first kind of, significant, piece of information that we get that says that maybe you aren't as happy in your culture. But what does a good company culture equate to? What is it?
Well, you know, again, I go back to I go back to some of my experience when I've been in a culture in an organization, and sometimes so I don't know if you guys work on departments, but sometimes even departments can have their own culture, the way that they treat each other, and if you think about culture, and you talk about your values. Are some of those values showing up in your culture? So when you say, an innovative culture, does innovation show up? Is it just something written on the drawer, or does it actually show up? So you're determining what is most important. What do you want to see in that culture? What's a healthy work environment? Is it a peaceful collaborative environment? Is it an environment where there's kindness? So you're kind of determining that and those key pieces of what makes a great culture. And then you're making sure that it happens, that people, Yves, just as you said with the YARs, you put that out there and it probably didn't take immediately. People had to roll it around and say, what does this really mean? Or what does, how's that going to show? And it took some time. And by you going over and reinforcing it over time, it grabbed, and it started to become natural. And so when we look at culture, it's those things as well.
So why does kindness matter?
Wow. Okay. That's my thing. I have been watching, so way back, I as you mentioned, I started looking at bullying, and I looked at schools and kids because my daughter had been through it, and I wanted to stop bullying, and it wasn't going to stop. And the more I talked about it, I kept getting stories that would break my heart from students. And then there was a period where I just had to kind of give myself the permission to stop going there. And I knew I needed to shift. And the shift was kindness. And I have been talking about kindness in all of my work experience. When you deal with customers, that's what great service is. It's identifying what somebody needs and taking an action to be kind, to go, that's over and above. And so I look back, and I've been doing these little kindness experiments with teams and with leaders and with delivering customer experience all along. And I thought, how cool is this? So I started to study it a bit more. And I started to play with it a bit more. And so I've been looking at kindness, certainly as we talk about psychological safety, and that creates that high performing team. Kindness helps with that. Kindness helps build trust. I've seen it turn terrible relationships around. I've seen it improve productivity. And we know through research, there's this feedback loop. So when you're kind, I feel good when I'm kind to somebody. It's the opposite. I feel awful when I'm not, but I feel good. And when you're good to somebody else and you feel good, there's this kindness feedback loop. And I've been doing some research where I've been looking at, some of the research from the high players, and I decided I wanted to see my own research if it matched up. And what I found, and we can talk about this after, but I do a really cool team building experiment. It's called 1,000 Acts of Kindness. And I did it with a group in healthcare. So I started with public health nurses, and they found after 6 weeks of doing this, these 1,000 acts of kindness, that their kindness went up by 28%. Their happiness in the workplace went up by 23%. And their happiness at home went up by 14%. I mean, how amazing is that? And what would that look like if people in organizations were walking around smiling more, happier, kinder? I think it's phenomenal. And that research, I did it during, just with a group during the pandemic, during the very beginning when it happened. Stress levels went down, anxiety went down, and that's everything that the research says. Niagara Health System has started with doing 1,000 acts of kindness, and they let me come in and study them and learn from them. They've now reached 40,000 acts, probably over that by now. But I believe it built their resilience too. But beyond that, they measured that there was a 20% decrease in incidents of violence and harassment. I mean, that is incredible. So much so that the ministry has made it part of their accreditation process.
Wow.
So the results are there.
Yeah. You know what gets me with this? As soon as Yves said kindness, your face lit up. And when you stopped standing against something, you were against bullying, but you decided to stand for kindness. And that's really where we shine. When we decide that we're going to end, I did the same thing, when I was out there, I said, I'm going to end homelessness. And the more I realized I was never going to end homelessness, the more depressed I got. I didn't stand anymore against homelessness. You know, I stood for those suffering homelessness, right? I stood for them instead of standing against it, you know, fighting everybody. So I saw, as soon as Yves mentioned kindness, I saw your face light up. And I really, you know, because when I said, oh, you're a co-author, bullying is not a game, you know, there wasn't that shine until Yves said, let's talk about kindness. So that's where your talent lies.
Oh,
you know,
thank you for saying that.
When we stand for something, it's so much more than standing against, isn't it?
That's so true. Great observation.
I say this often when I you know, of course, if you're on social media, you're going to get people commenting things. And my reply when I get a negative comment of that's not kind is usually like something like this: we practice what we become what we practice, right? Change your practice, change what you've become. And I don't think people understand that. What you're doing there with 1,000 acts of kindness is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. What you tell me, and the healthcare workers, like, hats off them. They're working so hard. Like, they are under pressure. They're working so hard. And they need to be reminded, right, that we care, but also that they care for themselves, right? They have to get, and it's kind of an easy but a hard thing to do, to practice 1,000 acts of kindness. Even to do one a day. Like, if you right, just like, have you been kind today? Like, what does that mean to be kind? And it doesn't need to like be a big act of philanthropist here. Like, you don't have to put $1 million or something. It has to be actually something very small, right? And you're like, I love what you said. When you practice kindness, it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Right? It's your medicine. It's like you get aligned. And when you feel good about yourself, you become a contributor. You become part of a community, part of something that's bigger than yourself. And I love that. And like you're right. Shelley said your face light up, and it did. And that's why it matters. Kindness matters. And if we were to do 1,000 acts of kindness in school, I bet you bullying would leave. It wouldn't be no more. It wouldn't be there. Because there's no space for hatred when kindness is there. There's actually no space.
That's right.
I heard somebody say, and I wish I would have wrote down the source, but they said something about how can you hate somebody who's kind, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I can't actually go on with this conversation anymore without bringing up Becca.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Laurie, if you know Becca Schofield.
Yeah.
He's got one of her cards up.
Oh, okay.
Becca told me to. So she was a young girl in our in Riverview here, and she was dying of cancer. She had a couple brain tumors, and they thought that she was going to live, but within a few months, those tumors came back larger than life, larger than she was not going to live. Her parents asked her to do a final chemotherapy round to help her make it through Christmas. I get very emotional. And the way that they did that, they said, we are going to hashtag, Becca told me to, for people to do acts of kindness.
Oh, wow.
And this is what we'll do, Becca. If you go in and you do this last round of treatment, and she agreed to do the last round of treatment, within a week, I think 10 days, there was over 2 million hashtags with Becca told me to, with random acts of kindness. I'm also going to let you know that this woman, she died at 17, girl. She was a woman, really. She was born on Random Act of Kindness Day.
Oh my gosh.
In New Zealand, Australia, I believe, and she died on Random Act of Kindness Day in the United States.
Wow.
Years later, but she had such an impact on our community that we all hashtag daily Random Act of Kindness. You couldn't go through Tim Hortons without somebody paying for your Timmy's double. It was just a constant, and it influenced us to like no other, Yves. We hashtag that. We
whole community.
Yeah.
Right? Your whole community's involved.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the whole community was involved, but also the whole world was involved. We had random acts of kindness from everywhere. And it got to be, Riverview became the kindness community in the world, you know, we were all about it. But as soon as she passed away, you know, you try to keep the momentum up. Yves still has a card, as you can see. I have, Becca told me to hashtag across my fridge. Her thoughts are there, but it takes momentum. It takes work to keep that alive, you know? So
Absolutely.
people like yourself, you know, your website shows, yes, that you are a trainer, speaker, coach, both virtually and on site. But if it was just truly smattered about just kindness, because I'm telling you, that's where you lit up. If we understood that you were going to come and coach us on kindness,
Yeah.
you know, you'd get a lot of business.
Well, I want to do the 1,000 acts of kindness. I want to.
Oh, you have to.
Oh, we're going to. We
We're
are
gonna do that. And yeah, I'm sure we're gonna work together.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
I think your movement is palpable. It's important, right? And I think that's what businesses need. Like when like leadership is like, we rely on the government for leadership in our community, but really businesses have a bigger role today. Like we are responsible for this turmoil that we've like manifested in the world. And the way to beat it is not to stand against it. The way to beat it is to act for something.
I like that.
Right? To act for something, to be a movement for kindness, right? And that's the way to beat what's going on in the world today. And the movement of
more
kindness.
than ever.
Yeah.
Need it.
2021 has to be about kindness, doesn't it?
Kindness, empathy, all of that, compassion.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we can wrap it up in the one word, though. I think we can wrap it up in kindness.
Kindness. Yeah. I love it.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to stand for kindness. I always do a gratitude a day. I set my daily intention a day, but I am going to set an act of kindness every day. And like you say, it doesn't have to be a whole lot, but I'm going to add that to my journaling in the morning, that random act of kindness is going to be written.
Shelley, that's where you see the goal, the beauty too, is when you actually write it down and you can see the impact on yourself and on that other person. And it's amazing how good you're going to feel.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like this is really important, Laurie. Like I remember posting that I had bought dinner for someone, like, and then somebody I didn't know, and I think it had to do with Black Lives Matter, and I posted that, right? And someone came to me and she said, you know, I do acts of kindness, but I don't brag about it.
Yeah.
Right? Shaming me.
Yeah.
And this is the world we live in. I thought about, you know what? No, I'm not doing it because I want to be praised for it. I'm doing it because I want everybody to do it. I want everybody to do their own act of kindness. Yes. I want to share the act of kindness. So like, I want to leave with this. Do not be shamed, right? Let's not be shamed by our acts of kindness. Let's be proud of our acts of kindness. There's no ego in just saying, you know what, I did this today. And just say it, right? Without some attachment to it, not to get something from it. I'm just saying, I did this today. I paid coffee for a police officer. I paid coffee forward, or I held my tongue. Right. I did not react, or whatever it is. Just come up and say it. And there's not enough of that. And don't be ashamed. You shouldn't be ashamed of acts of kindness. You know,
I think you and I need a coffee together to get into that one even deeper. I agree with you.
Yeah, I agree. It won't be the last meeting we have, for sure.
Absolutely. What a great way to end. And I want to thank you so much, Laurie. You have been an absolute pleasure. And I can see us doing quite a few of these. You align with Dovico, honestly, so well. So we would love to have you on again.
Love that.
We'll be talking. So this is Mindset Monday. I'm Shelley Butler.
I'm Yves Doucet.
Thank you, Laurie Flasko, for being so kind and being here with us. I love you. Get your workout in. Mwah.
Your kindness in.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.